Actually, if I remember right, most bridges weren't bridges. They were actually factories. Especially the design. If you look at a bridge, the way it has kind of like a narrow channel, and then going through it, and that wasn't a bridge. That was actually a factory. Um, I think I had a lot of factories along rivers. In fact, that was my free way of having textiles and factories, is that we would just have um, a lot of factories along the bridges, and the and all the different paddles actually had a natural effect of slowing down the river quite a bit because the paddles would slow down the river, and it used to flow a lot more back then. I mean, you used to get a lot more flow. I'm pretty sure, and there was actually like beginning like things in front of these things. Like most bridges were actually a lot longer than they actually are now. They actually had more stuff, I believe, in front of them that was worn away that would keep storm surges from drowning them. And actually, I think there might have been ways for water to go around the buildings, but it was kind of interesting because sometimes some of these things, because there'd be a storm and there was a lot more water flow back then anyway, and some of these buildings were like, you know, in the waves or in the storm surges because it would flood sometimes, and there'd be huge floods. Although a lot of these rivers, you know, they were so far downstream. But anyway, though, but a lot of those bridges weren't bridges; they were actually factories, and they had water wheels behind them. In fact, for many years, that was the best way to get power for me and my people. Is that's what I suggested. I suggested that they build water wheels, and they had lots and lots of water wheels, and they ran textiles, and they did just about anything and everything. In fact, you would go to your local river, and you would go and you would get your drilling done or whatever you needed done. There'd be drill shops at the river. So that's what all those things, just like my later on factories where they had these big factories and the river going through, bridges weren't bridges, they were factories. And they were most factories were about at least 20 foot wide. The actual factory would be off from the river usually because just in case it got washed out. But a lot of those bridges, like I say, they weren't bridges, they were factories. And they're mine. And then later on, and I actually had it so people could cross over, because sometimes on the roof people could climb up, walk along the roof, and walk down to the other side. Since I had to have the factory and the powerhouse there anyway, I made it so people could cross, and people use them to cross a lot. So anyway, and they provided water wheels and factories, and they provided power for my peoples, and big hugs. I love my peoples. I feel like just hugging my people. Anyway, my people got free power, and they did all kinds of things, like they would mill stuff. I believe the grains for the bread, everything. A lot of things were done. Like some things were done by air, but that didn't really work that well with the big windmills. If they had lots of wind, they would do that by the big windmills, but that didn't work all that well. What really did work really, really well was the water wheels, and there were a lot of water wheels. In fact, so many so that the water would actually get slowed down too much. But anyway, though, but they rotted out over time. But yeah, a lot of those bridges weren't bridges; they were water wheels. So, and they're mine. I love my peoples, and I love what I invented for them and designed for them. Anyway, it was free energy. It worked really well, and people really loved it and ran off a belt. Problem is the wood rotted, and so there's that. But yeah, for many, 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 many years, people used free power from rivers.